A kite is a quadrilateral with two pairs of congruent sides. But unlike a parallelogram, the congruent sides are consecutive. So here's one pair of congruent sides that are next to each other, they're consecutive. And here's a second pair of congruent sides that are consecutive, they're next to each other. Think of a kite as a parallelogram that has been cut along one of the diagonals and flipped around. In a kite, we do have one pair of congruent angles, and the congruent angles are opposite of each other. Many times, these angles are thought to be congruent, and in some kites, like a rhombus and a square, they are congruent, but not in all kites. In fact, these two angles are not congruent to each other. The diagonals of a kite are perpendicular to each other, and one of the diagonals bisects the other diagonal. We might have two diagonals bisected, but if we have two diagonals bisected, then we have a square or a rhombus, which are both kites, but at a bare minimum, a kite has at least one diagonal bisected. The kite is the only quadrilateral that can be concave. We still have consecutive sides congruent, and we have two pair of those consecutive sides congruent. And we still have one pair of congruent opposite angles. And you can really see in this example that this angle is not congruent to this angle. This angle is less than 90 degrees, and this angle is more than 180 degrees. So these two angles are definitely not congruent. In this concave kite, we can still draw in the diagonals. It's just that the diagonal will go outside the kite. And if we look, the diagonals are still perpendicular to each other, and one of the diagonals is still bisected.